Okay, so we're going to talk about a little bit of prevention to help you to not get overwhelmed in the first place with trauma symptoms. And in order to do that, we need to do a little bit of foundational work. So I'd like you to consider that there are 3 different categories of coping skills. So the very first we're going to think about as avoidance. So this means that it's so bad I won't even touch it. Like I'm not even aware that I'm having a reaction to it. I avoid it completely. Denial, denial, denial. The second is distraction. So this means that I become aware that I'm having some sort of sensation or upset feeling or good feeling even, and decide that I'm going to shut that down. So that involves awareness. Avoidance is no awareness, complete denial. Distraction, in order to distract, you have to first become aware that something's happening, and then you decide like, okay, that's too much, or I don't like that, and I'm going to distract myself from it. And then the third category, is sort of the most evolved of those categories, is emotion regulation. So that is the ability to feel your feels and not get overwhelmed by your feels or have to shut them down. So most times, folks with trauma backgrounds who haven't been in sufficient treatment are in the first 2 categories. So either complete avoidance, like la 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 la, or distraction. I feel it and then I need to distract. Those are totally fine. We want to use all of our mechanisms of adaptive functioning. So here's what I'd like you to do. Grab a piece of paper and make yourself 3 columns. So avoidance, distraction, and self-regulation, or like adaptive coping, whatever you want to call it, it's fine. And most people are most aware of the things that go in that center category, the distraction category. So I want you to think about something that got you upset or feeling something you didn't want to feel, and then what you did to distract your mind from it. So that might include things like I got out of the house and went shopping. I phoned a friend and did not talk about it. We talked about something else. Or I watched a TV show, or I binged on Netflix, or I binged on Cheetos. Whatever it happens to be for you. And I want you to list as many as you possibly can. All of the things that you use for distraction. And here's where I'll get a little bit controversial, in that I want you to list not just the things that you think are the super healthy ways that you distract, but all of the ways that you distract. So some people use skills that they're not especially proud of. Those go there too, because you're using them because they're working. They may not be the best thing ever. They may be something we want to phase out over time. But if you use cutting or burning or hurting yourself in any sort of way in order to distract yourself from pain, now listen carefully, because people use those things for different reasons. So really think about, do I use that to distract? And if so, put it in the box. We'll talk about other reasons people use non-suicidal self-injury in another video. But all of the things, put it in your distraction box. Okay, that's the easiest one to fill out. In the avoidance box, so this one can be a little tricky. What I want you to be careful to do is to not spend time thinking about what you're trying to avoid right now. So we're going to use our avoidance. And instead, just think about, where is it you spend a lot of your mental time? And it could be super, super adaptive. For example, if you're in school, if you spend a whole lot of time studying or preparing for classes, and not really as a distraction, like something hasn't come up that you're trying to escape, but you do spend a lot of your time there, that might also be a way that you're avoiding some dangerous emotional content. So in that category, in the avoidance category, go ahead and list all of the things that take up a good amount of your time. So it might be studying for school, it might be excessive working, or just the right amount of working if you're perfectionistic and you work a whole lot. Anything that might be an avoidance. Or, for example, like really spending a lot of your effort taking care of other people. Focusing on other people's stuff is a good way to avoid focusing on your stuff. We're not labeling these things as good or bad. We're just marking down what is. And you might find that some things that exist in the distraction category also exist in the avoidance category. So maybe you spend a whole lot of time taking care of other people, and we suspect that that might be both kind and a functional way that you'll avoid spending too much time on painful material of your own. But it might also be something you use to distract. So if you become aware of painful material and you know that you can't deal with it right then, or just you choose not to, you might use that exact same coping skill of focusing on other people's problems, but in a different way, now for distraction. So you can pause the video and take a little time to fill that out. And then we're going to move over into the other category, which is emotion regulation. And again, what this means is just that you can have the feels without getting totally overwhelmed by the feels and feeling out of control, or that you need some intense coping mechanism. But you can also not feel like you have to smush it away into a little compartment. And what we're going to do over here, because this is an issue with being able to hold two things at once, both calm and ease, and maybe pain or anxiety or anger or sadness. So if there are any particular things you do that facilitate you being able to get to that place, and that's an evolved place, go ahead and write those things down. For example, lots of people are able to get to their emotions more easily by writing than by saying it out loud to someone. And when they do that, they don't feel completely overwhelmed and they don't feel like they have to smush it down, but they can really get it out on paper and they can hold all of it at once, the ease and the pain. Or maybe it's through drawing, that they can really be with the feelings and not overwhelmed by the feelings or not needing to shut the feelings into a box. So if you've got some stuff over there, that's awesome, because that's the hardest one to find anything in. If you've got nothing over there, no worries, that's what therapy is for. You might even put like being with my therapist helps me be there. Probably sometimes. Probably other times you feel overwhelmed and other times you're smushing things in boxes even in therapy. That's okay. Everybody uses all three of these compartments. Everybody, no matter what their history. So again, I just want people to know that if this fits for you, but you don't remember any trauma history, please don't go freaking out thinking you have a trauma history you just don't remember, right? All of us have all of the same internal workings. They're just turned up or down depending on our genetics and our life experiences. So if this applies to you and you don't have trauma, great. That's helpful. Okay. Now you have your things in your boxes, so you know what works for what. Over the next few weeks, it might be helpful for you just to keep that little sheet handy and make tally marks when you're using one of those coping skills so that you can get a good sense of, okay, like where am I spending most of my time? Is it in avoidance? Is it in distraction? Or is it in this emotional tolerance? And this is useful information because one of the really important things about therapy when you're working with trauma, simple or complex trauma, is that your pacing is right. So if you rely almost exclusively on the avoidance category, one of the most dangerous things you can do is go into therapy and immediately, open the wound and start pouring everything out. Because that requires some higher level coping skills. You're going to get overwhelmed if you do that. So we want to build up the coping in the other two compartments before you start, opening everything up. That's going to be completely overwhelming. If you've got, good number of skills in all of the boxes, maybe your pacing is a little bit faster and you get to deeper trauma work if you even need to do that work. If you've got a ton of emotion regulation stuff and you can really hold lots all at once without getting overwhelmed, without needing to shut down, great. You're going to be able to do a different level of work. I think one of the really cool things about doing trauma work is that there are multiple angles that you need to work from. So part of the work is about building up skills for containment, and that's what we're talking a lot about. Some of the work might be building up skills for learning how to open up. And I think about this like if you've ever had a spigot faucet that's been stuck in off for a really long time. So all the emotion's been held down. And that you're trying to learn to open it up. I mean, you really have to wrestle with it. You really have to work to get it open. And then when you do get it open, a lot of times you overdo it and then it's flooding. And you're thinking, what the hell did I just do? So good therapy helps you to cope with the flooding, because it does tend to flood just like a little bit in the beginning, to turn that dial back down. And then you can like slowly turn it back on, and eventually you're using skills and your therapy to be able to regulate like, okay, how much of my emotion or of my history am I able to cope with right now? So you could have it at a drip and just a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. Maybe you're in like a really great stable place and you can turn up that dial a little bit and have a gentle stream that you're dealing with through therapy. So the containment exercises we're learning are about how to turn that spigot back down. So it works really well for people who are already flooded or who have opened up the spigot and they're going like, oh hell, what have I done? To learn how to close that back up. So I hope that's a helpful foundation. I'm going to close this video. I'll open up another on helping you to regulate that foundation and get it to where you want to be. Okay,